Before he ever stepped inside a professional mixed martial arts cage to trade brutal punches for global fame, Gary Goodridge was already a feared physical specimen. Hailing from Trinidad and Tobago before moving to Canada, this massive heavyweight was a multi-time world champion in the sport of professional arm wrestling. This highly unique athletic background provided him with an absolutely legendary level of grip strength, explosive tendon power, and a dense upper body frame. He brought the raw, blue-collar discipline of a world-class strength athlete directly into the wild, unregulated early days of no-holds-barred fighting tournaments. Gary did not rely on flashy movements or traditional martial arts philosophy. His primary weapons were his giant, heavy hands and an absolute lack of fear. Goodridge proved early on that his immense upper body strength could easily neutralize standard techniques, setting a violent bedrock for what would become an iconic career. The year 1996 provided combat sports fans with what remains, to this very day, the single most terrifying and iconic knockout in the entire history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. At UFC 8, making his highly anticipated debut inside the octagon, Gary faced a dangerous practitioner of Kuk Sul One named Paul Herrera. The moment the opening bell rang, the world witnessed a display of raw, clinical aggression that instantly altered the landscape of the sport forever. Within the first seconds, Goodridge used his elite power to trap his opponent's arms in a tight, inescapable crucible position known as the crucifix. From that dominant spot, he unleashed a rapid, devastating series of heavy, unanswered elbows directly to his opponent's temple line. The spectacular, brutal finish took only 13 seconds to conclude, establishing Big Daddy as an absolute force of nature whose sheer violence demanded immediate international attention. The absolute historical pinnacle of Gary's legendary fighting career was definitively forged during the golden, magical era of the PRIDE Fighting Championships in Japan. The passionate Japanese crowds completely fell in love with his rugged, charismatic persona, his massive muscular frame, and his absolute willingness to stand and trade punches. He became a premier main event attraction for the iconic promotion, engaging in legendary, high-stakes battles that captured the public's imagination. He shared the historic white ring with the absolute best heavyweights of his generation, including brutal encounters against fighters like Igor Vovchanchin and Fedor Emelianenko. Even when facing immense physical punishment or tactical deficits on the canvas, Big Daddy never backed down a single inch from a good fight. His memorable performances in Japan solidified his status as an immortal pioneer, proving to a global audience that raw, honest power could always create a spectacle. What truly separated Gary Goodridge from almost every other heavyweight fighter of his generation was his absolute, lifelong refusal to ever turn down a dangerous fight challenge. Throughout his iconic, multi-decade career, he competed extensively in both mixed martial arts and elite K1 kickboxing tournaments simultaneously. He actively sought out the absolute most terrifying knockout artists of his era, testing his iron chin and warrior spirit against the elite of the elite. He shared the arena with legends such as Alistair Overeem, Don Frye, Peter Aerts, Ernesto Hust, and Jerome Lubana across multiple fight promotions. Even when entering bouts with minimal preparation or carrying severe physical injuries, Gary walked forward with the exact same roaring, explosive confidence. This complete lack of fear regarding rules, styles, or physical danger turned his career into a legendary gauntlet, earning him the eternal respect of fight purists. Beyond his terrifying knockout power and violent cage performances, Gary was also defined by some of the most famous, respectful friendships in the history of combat sports. His legendary trilogy of fights against his close friend and rival Don Frye became the absolute standard of old-school warrior brotherhood. They battered each other with raw, visceral force inside the ring, only to share a deep, lifetime bond of mutual respect and friendship the very second the battle concluded. This honorable, old-school warrior code earned him the profound admiration of fighters, trainers, and fans worldwide. Goodridge treated the fight game not as a place for personal hatred or fake internet drama, but as an ultimate test of human character and physical output. He carried this heavy responsibility with immense pride throughout his long career, serving as a perfect example of what it truly meant to be a real, authentic gladiator of the iron and cage era. When Gary Goodridge finally stepped away from active professional combat sports, he left behind an absolutely unique, immortal legacy that helped shape the modern landscape. He entered the fighting world as a quiet arm wrestling champion and left it as one of the most respected, recognizable pioneers of the early Vale Tudo era. His incredible life journey serves as a powerful, visceral reminder that raw grit, devastating power, and a true warrior heart will always stand the test of time. Future generations of mixed martial artists will continually study his legendary crucifix elbow finish and his fearless, heavy-handed battles, trying to replicate his raw power. He showed the world that a fighter could achieve immortality through raw authenticity, exciting finishes, and an absolute dedication to facing the best. The legendary Big Daddy has officially laid down his gloves, but his powerful, battle-tested silhouette remains permanently etched into combat history.